This is my first time in Germany, first time in Berlin, first time in Hamburg. And going to Hamburg and Berlin, it hasn't been a vacation in the way that you would traditionally probably experience in another country. This has been completely about Helmut. And so my mind has just constantly been reflecting on him and his choices.
In Hamburg, we visited a place called the Biberhaus. It's an old government building. It's where Helmut worked. We were fortunate to meet there with a curator named Sven Schuch, who had discovered Helmut's story really only recently, but was so taken with it that he's really kind of become an expert. He's done so much research into who was this young man from Hamburg that I have never heard of who stood up against Hitler.
Like in the lower floors, people were amusing themselves. They were dancing, they were drinking coffee, while Helmut was sitting in this third floor thinking about the resistance, typing these pamphlets. But these two things were like coexisting.
As Matt and I were speaking with him, he was sharing things with us that we thought we knew or we didn't know anything about. And we're like, oh my goodness, really? We thought this. And we would share things with him. Then he's like, no way. And it was just this synergistic exchange that is just broadening the story and people's understanding and appreciation for what Helmut did.
I think now way more people have access to his story, and we will see what happened. At one place, perhaps they have to rename a square or something. So they're like...
The Helmuth Hübener Square.
This would be like what I would love to
Helmuth Hübener
see.
Platz, yeah?
Yeah. This would be actually something I would love to see here. Here it is. I will shortly knock. So this was the place where Helmut was sitting.
This was where Helmut worked. I mean, obviously it's been totally remodeled.
It is completely remodeled. It has nothing to do with back in the day. And nowadays, the funny story is that also here is the space where they train, like where they have their trainees.
So they're young, new workers like he was.
Yeah.
It's just poetic.
This particular space was where he went to work every day. It was, overlooking the train station. He could see the people coming and going. And I just wonder if that just instilled even more urgency in him to just like, there's so many people out here, they're turning a blind eye or they don't know. I've got to let them know. And so it's ironic, he's working during the day in this office for the Nazis, and then at night, he's going out on those same streets that he looks at during the day, urgently, passionately getting the word out, trying to let the people know.
This is where he was sitting, or somewhere in this area, when the Gestapo rushed in and took him and changed his life forever. I was thinking about the first time I sat down with Karl-Heinz Schnippe, and he started telling me about when he was arrested and held as a prisoner.
Shall I say good morning or what? Sure. Oh yeah. Well, good morning. My name is Karl-Heinz Schnippe.
He and Helmut and Rudi were held in these dank cells at the basement. It was a police station at the time. I could remember standing in a cell with Karl that he had been held in 70-something years earlier. And he went over to the barred window and was peering up through it, and he was in there for about 2 minutes, and then he just looked over at me and said, I gotta get out. And had to leave, It had been 70 plus years, and still it was a place of terror for him. Now here we are, 80 years later, and this old police station where Helmut and Karl and Rudi were held and tortured is named the Helmuth Hübener House. And it's meaningful to me that it's a place of refuge for the homeless. People come here when they don't have any place else to go. And I love the fact that, in Nazi Germany, you'd see Hitler's name everywhere, Adolf Hitler Platz, and the streets, and named after him and his henchmen and everything like that. You don't see any of their names anywhere in Germany, but you see names like Helmuth Hübener's outside of a building that used to be a place of torture and now is a place of refuge. Carl said that they were brought in a paddy wagon. So they would have come in right through that gate there and then just driven them up here. This is kind of like in the back of the Helmuth Hübener house. What is now the Helmuth Hübener house, but the back of the police station, they would have taken them right up here and probably, you know, Carl talked about, this is when they got them out of the car or out of the wagon and then took them in, and he looked at the wrong Gestapo agent the wrong way. And the guy shoved him up against a wall. Could have been right up against one of these brick walls. And he said that they bloodied his nose. And then they said, "You pig, what are you doing? You made our walls all dirty." And then they would have taken him downstairs. And then the cell that Carl was held in is just right over there. When we went in there, you could look through and the windows are still barred. Helmuth was arrested on February 5th, 1942, so 80 years ago. But he had made a promise to Carl and Rudy that if I ever get arrested, if I ever get caught, I'm not going to give them your names. And we know he lasted about 5 days. Here's a kid who was brought up in, you know, a peaceful household, and suddenly he's being beaten and tortured, and they keep telling him, "Tell us, who is it that's writing these? Who's writing these?" They thought for sure there's some adult, some professor or something like that that's actually writing the flyers. And he kept telling them over and over again, "I'm the one writing them," which was the truth. But he also told them, "Nobody helped me," because he was trying to keep his promise and cover for his friends. And after 5 days and 5 nights of tortures and beatings and questionings, you know, they finally broke him. And he gave the names of Carl and Rudy. And later that same day, that's when Carl and Rudy were driven right here. My gosh. Right here. And that's where these teenagers were taken in, and, you know, their lives were never the same again.
Visiting the German Resistance Memorial Center has been a unique experience for me because I knew that there were many resistance fighters, but I didn't know that there were that many. I know von Stauffenberg, but there's a room that has a whole wall of individuals. I didn't know that there were so many people involved. Just to think about how they communicated to each other in that space, to think about how they were able to communicate their messages so clandestine, so secretly, without getting caught up until that very day when the plot failed. It's astounding to see also Helmuth in this category of young resistance fighters. He's up there with the White Rose Group, Swing Kids, other youth who felt compelled to do something. This energy, the idea of getting the truth out there was amongst the youth at the time, and Helmuth was one of them. He is among many noble and great young heroes.
Right out front in this museum, they have photos of some of the most well-known resistance fighters, and there was Helmuth right there amongst them. And that was so rewarding for me to see all of these other older resistance fighters, and there's that one teenager.
It's incredible and so important that we have places like the Resistance Museum to share the stories of these resistance fighters. As you walk through, Helmuth is featured, but he's featured among many, you know, so I'm excited because I'm very drawn to this story, have a personal connection with Carl and that friendship there. It's wonderful to be able to take this particular story and shine a light on it and take it wider, which you can do through a television series or a feature film, and get it to a wider audience. Tell it in entertaining form. You know, we all want to be entertained, but we can also, you know, be inspired and we can be moved. And that's what I hope that we do with this series.
It's like you were saying, you know, I've been so immersed in this story for so many years that it shouldn't happen anymore, right? I know all the facts, but the feelings are still raw for me. I don't know why. But just being here is very emotional. There's so much that I don't know about Helmuth, you know, but I know that he was incredibly bright. I know that he was a young man of faith. There's evidence that he had a crush on the girl at his work, you know, that he just, of course he wanted to live, you know. One of the last things that he told Carl and Rudy after they'd been sentenced, and he knew he was going to die, he said to them, "You will have a better life in a better Germany." I see that it's almost like a little prophecy that he was making, you know, that he saw something that nobody else around him really could see. But one way that I look at that is that his influence is cause for a better life in a better Germany. Here we are at what was the police station and a place of torture, and now it's the Helmuth Hübener house, and it's a place of refuge. You know, I think what Helmuth did, not just Helmuth of course, but Helmuth and others like him, became the soil that post-war Germany could grow out of and become this incredibly peaceful, welcoming society